So I'm going to start by asking us to say one or two things that you learned while we were talking about introduction. What did you learn from how to write an introduction? So I want to hear from you what you learned, and tell me if you will be able to write your own introduction if you are writing your book from what I've taught you today. So let the hands begin to go up. What did you learn from introduction? I believe that you wrote some things down while I was teaching. So who is going to talk first? What did you learn from introduction? How to write introduction? Your hand is up. Okay, let him have the mic.
I learned that when you're writing your introduction, it shouldn't be more about yourself. Like
Good.
you don't talk more about yourself.
It shouldn't be more about yourself. It should be about the reader and what the reader will benefit, okay?
The introduction is the most important part of the book. And you just said it now that it should be about the reader and what the person stands to gain.
Yeah.
And then you also said you should try to explain that you are an authority on that.
Beautiful.
What I learned for the introduction is when you're writing your introduction, you shouldn't write everything they need to learn in the chapters.
Yes. Good. Because if you're going to write everything they will learn in the chapter, I mean that introduction will be a very big introduction, too voluminous.
And also, it gives interest to the reader.
Good. Your introduction must intrigue the reader to want to continue reading the book. Good. Next one.
I learned that as a beginner, we should not start our introduction with a story.
Beautiful. Don't start with stories. Just write a simple introduction, 1-page or 2-page introduction.
I learned that when you're writing, if you want to really make your book thick, you must not write or start your introduction first.
Good.
It should be after you have finished writing.
Beautiful. At the end of the book, you have a better understanding of the content, and then you create an introduction.
I learned that when writing your introduction, the introduction should not be lengthy.
Beautiful.
Make it short. And then you shouldn't add unnecessary stories that are not
related.
Needed. Yes, that are not related to what you're writing.
Great job. Thank you.
I learned that your introduction must be of paragraphs.
Okay, good. Must have paragraphs. Okay.
You said the introduction should introduce the general concept of the book,
Good.
the problem the book seeks to solve, and then the solutions also.
Beautiful.
Another key thing I learned about introduction is that you shouldn't start with a story, especially if
you're a new
writer. Good. Or a new author.
Beautiful, beautiful. With another hand there.
What I learned is that writing an introduction is not writing a biography.
Good. Don't write your biography inside introduction. Thank you so much.
I learned that writing an introduction, you shouldn't write the entire chapter or entire book on an introduction.
On the introduction. Good. Make it brief. There's one hand behind.
It also enlightens the reader to have hope for solution towards his problem.
Beautiful. So your introduction must identify the problem of the reader and give the solution. And then tell the reader that inside the chapters, you will see the solutions there. So delve in and go and read.
I learned that your introduction engages the reader and also establishes trust.
Trust. Beautiful. From your introduction, your reader can already know whether they should trust you and continue reading the book or they should drop the book.
I learned that an introduction should be an overview of the entire book, but has to be very precise.
Good. It should be precise, short and precise. And it should be an overview.
Yes, I also learned the importance of introduction.
Good.
Because if you realize how important it is, then you will really make an effort to give a proper introduction. Because if the introduction is not good, and the body of the book is good, the introduction may dissuade people from getting the content.
Good one. Thank you so much. I hope you people will apply these rules when you are writing your own book. Don't just say it here. When you start writing, apply it, okay?
Sir, I would love to know, how would one know when he veers off from the introduction to synopsis? Because I was trying my hands on something and At some point, I stopped. I felt I was writing synopsis rather than introduction.
Okay.
Let me just read a few lines I wrote. It is often said that politics is a dirty game for dirty players. This misconception has long made people to be indifferent to political activities, worse, to the term itself. This book is not written, at this point, I felt what I had written was synopsis.
Okay.
So how would one know in the process if you're veering off from introduction to synopsis?
Yeah, the next thing you wanted to say in this book, or that you said this book said, or I have written in this book. So in an introduction, you can use I have written in this book the principles to financial prosperity. But you cannot say that in the synopsis, because in the synopsis, I don't want to hear I want to hear he or she, third person, present tense, you get. But in an introduction, you can say, this is the reason I have written this book, to solve the financial economics. So you can use first person in an introduction. Did I answer your question, sir? Okay, is that clear for everybody? Good.
I learned that don't write everything in the story, because if the people have read the introduction and they are reading the story, they'll say that everything that is in the story is what is in the introduction.
Yes, so don't write a story that is there in the introduction, inside the book in the introduction.
Sir, mine is a question.
Yes.
And it has been bothering me. Sir, talking about writing, there is this particular author that has written about marriage.
Okay.
And this is someone I know. And his home is not stable. Yes, I'm talking to you now. He's living in a separate apartment. And his children and wife, they're living in a separate apartment, but he have a book. And when he gave me the book to read, I couldn't. To be sincere, I've not opened it. Because he's not living a practical lifestyle. Just like what he said, fake life. So I don't know what I've done. Is it right or wrong? Because I cannot learn.
People like that are the best people to write books about marriage. Did I shock you? I have a client in the UK. I've written 6 books for him. All the books are about marriage. And the first one I wrote for him is titled, What is True Love? The Cure for Divorce. He had a divorce with his wife. And now he's writing books about marriage, correcting the mistake that he made that destroyed that marriage, telling us why we should not have a divorce, using, the 15 characteristics of true love in 1 Corinthians 13. He listed them, using them to write book. About 6-7 books I have written for him, but he had a divorce. Now somebody will see his book and say, oh, this one that had a divorce is writing a book about marriage. He's sharing his experience, his mistakes, his pains. Your duty is to pick that book and learn from the mistake that he has made. That's why I told you that you can convert your life experiences into books. Okay? So, it is true you know him, that he's living apart from his family, but read the book. Maybe in that book, he has shared the mistakes that he made that led to the destruction of that marriage. And he's telling readers, do not repeat the same mistake that I made. Okay? So, for such people, if I see their books, I want to read it, because I feel that they've gone through so much pain and they are sharing their pain with us. And in that pain, they are also giving us solution on how to prevent such things in our own marriages. Okay? Yeah, so get that book and read it. Get it and read it. Except if you get the book and you are not reading, you now see that he's telling lies or something, it's a different thing. Okay? But the truth is, as long as you are not living in their house, in that marriage, you can never tell what exactly happened in the marriage. You might say, oh, he's trying to lie against the wife, or, but until you live there, you don't know exactly what happened. Your own is to read the book, pick as many lessons as you can pick, discard the ones that you feel do not apply to you, and move on. That is it. Did I answer the question? Good. Okay, yes, go ahead.
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
The question is about the writer, and then you said something. You said you've written about 6 books for somebody.
Yes.
And then the person is still the author.
Yes.
So it is very possible for somebody to be an author while you are not the writer.
Yes. You were not here at the beginning of the lecture.
I was not here at the very beginning.
Okay, that's why. Yes, it's very possible. Right? Okay, finish your question.
Okay. Let me give for instance now, there is a friend of mine that I write films.
Okay.
So this friend of mine gave me a story. He just said, I want you to write. He just analyzed it, summarized the entire story and said I should put it into writing.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, he collected the film that I wrote from me.
Yeah.
And then he refused to give it back to me.
But
So
you were writing the film for him?
Yes, he gave me the story to write.
Okay.
And then after writing, I went to show to him if he was satisfied with it. And then he collected it and he was telling me he is the owner of the story that I have just written. So that's why I'm asking if it's possible for somebody to write and another person will bear the name.
Okay, so let me answer that question. Before he came to you for you to write on that particular film, did you have that idea in your head that you wanted to write something about that film before? No, you didn't have. Okay. So he brought the idea. So he brought the idea to you.
Yes, sir.
So it is his idea. You are only helping him arrange his ideas. And he is supposed to pay you for it as a freelance writer. Now, what I tell people, if you are a freelance writer, do not start a job if they have not paid you at least 50% of your price. I'll tell you, I charge $1,000 to write one book. Now, I told you when I started with Pastor Adelaja, he was paying me $2,000 for one book. Okay? And I did up to 12 books for him. Now, when I stopped working with him and other clients were coming, I reduced the price to $1,000 while I was living in Ukraine. So what I do, my rule is this. I send you the agreement. The agreement is that you give me the title of the book you want to write. If you have recorded any voice note or any story, you send them to me. Or if you have written a skeleton, send it to me, okay? I'll look at it. In fact, even before I start looking at your work, because time is money. I cannot spend my time and be listening to all your audios and everything, and you have not dropped anything. So the idea is you pay me 50% of that $1,000, which is $500, before I even create a synopsis to send to you. So I listen to your stories and everything, I create a synopsis, and I send to you. Immediately you accept the synopsis and say, go ahead and complete the book. You've already paid me my $100. I tell you, you get your book in 2 months' time. Once I finish the book in 2 months, I just tell you, your book is ready. These are my bank details. I'm not sending you the book. You have to pay the other $500 first before I send you the book. Now, when I send you the book and you read it and you feel that we need to correct 1 or 2 things, no problem. I have another 2 weeks for us to make corrections, add whatever you want to add. But I will not invest my time to write for you, and then at the end, you'll not be telling me stories that you don't have money to pay, or you not say, hey, I don't like the book, I don't agree with the book. No, don't ever do that. Intellectual property is one of the most expensive properties. If it is easy, let him write it by himself. If he doesn't want to pay, let him write it by himself. I've told you there are people who, for 20 years, trying to write one book, they couldn't write it. And then you give it to me, I finish it in 3 months, you're not telling me stories. I don't take it. You have to pay me my money. So, you ought to have asked that person to pay you whatever agreement you people had, the price. They have to pay you first before you give the work to him. If he didn't pay you and he went with the work, he just cheated you because you spent time. It took a lot of brain work. If it was easy, why didn't he do it by himself? Okay? So, one person can have the idea and give it to another person to write. Why? Because the owner of the idea is too busy. He has other things he's doing. You think that people like, have you read any book by Donald Trump? Donald Trump has books. I've read some of his books. You think he sat down to write it? They don't have the time to write. They only give you the ideas. You go and put it together. Or some of them, they record an audio, go and transcribe that audio and develop it. Get your money. Easy way to make money. I told you before. Okay? Good. Did I answer your question?
Sir, yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you are not so experienced?
Yeah.
And you want to go about this book writing?
Yes.
A client meets you or somebody meets you and tells you about his book and he tells you what to do and how you should go about it, then he gives you a little pay for it. Can you actually go write that book as an inexperienced writer?
Okay, when you say little pay, he pays you like 20% of the money or 10% of the money, and then he will pay the balance later.
He gives some sort of stipends, let me put it that way.
Okay.
Stipends.
Okay. Whatever stipends is given should be an agreement between the both of you. Let it be that you agreed to that stipends. It's not as if he's cheating you or something, right? If it is $1,000 or $100, both of you agreed, or if it's 10,000 naira, collect it. If it, let's say 10K, for example, in naira. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
They want to be part of those earning
from it. Yes, okay. Yes, so now you cannot be earning. You are the freelance writer. You wrote the book for somebody, okay? Whatever the person makes from the book, it doesn't concern you as long as the person has paid you for your job. So remove your eyes from, even if that person make $1 million from that book, it's not your business. You are only acknowledged in the book as an editor. That is, and they paid you for your job. That's it. Now, if you are not experienced, you don't want to charge so much money, just in case the author, is not satisfied with the work that you have done. The client is not satisfied with the work that you have done. You might need to either rewrite that book again, let the client tell you where he or she is dissatisfied. Maybe here we need to change this. I told you the first book I wrote for Adelaja, I knew that book was below standard. But he now coached me and said, do it like this, do it like this. He sent it to me. I corrected it. The next time, what I do is I go to his house. We sit down. I will be reading the whole book. So as I'm reading chapter 1, he will say, no, change this sentence to this, like that. And that was how we did it. We did like twice like that. He sent corrections. I went to his house. We read. And eventually he accepted that book. The next book became better. The next book became better, like that. Okay? But the reason why you are having a training like this, and why I told you that I have an author's college which you have to enroll to join. It is not free. I'm going to be with you in that author's college for 6 months. You will have access to me. I'll be able to coach you. What I told you, this course is supposed to take 2 weeks, 4 weeks, but was putting everything together in just 2 days. Even if I teach you everything, right, in 4 weeks, you still need me to guide you through the process when you now start, because theory is different from practical. You still need me to guide you through the process. You send your introduction to me. I read it on Zoom. I tell you, correct this, correct that, and all of that. That's why you have to pay to join the author's college. Okay? So I would like for you, instead of going to work as an inexperienced freelance writer, learn the process very well. Know it very well. When you have known it, you cannot stay with me for 6 months. In fact, if you stay with me for 6 months, right, and you learn all of these things, the first book you're going to write for a client, the client will think that you've been writing, for many years. That is it. Because I'm going to drill you. I'm going to make sure that in that 6 months, every month, you produce at least one book, your own book, and I'm going to guide you through the process. We have Zoom. We can have a call on Zoom. You share your screen with me. I read your content. I make corrections like that. So I'm going to guide you through all of that. So that Authors College is called Mastermind Authors College. For those of you who would love to take this training further and you want me to actually guide you through the process of getting your book until it is published, I'd like you put your number. Those who are interested to join the Authors College, you drop your phone number and everything with him. I'm going to create a WhatsApp group, put you there, and tell you when we will start the coaching process. But it's going to run for 6 months. And for that 6 months, you have access to me. I'm going to give you my time to coach you on how to do it. Did I answer your question, sir?
Thank you. You answered it perfectly. Because some time ago, someone called me. Okay. A lecturer called me to do a work for him. Okay. And we agreed and he actually paid. But first, I was doubting my capacity because the PhD work. Yeah. So I was doubting if I can actually handle this thing. Yeah. But in 1 month, I did it and I gave it to him and this case was settled.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You don't know what you are capable of until you try. So I wrote a book. My first book is titled Your Potentials, the Source of Your Greatness. Qualities that you have that you don't know you have until you do. you take action, you practice. In that process, you now begin to discover all the talent and hidden treasures that you have inside of you. Yeah, there's a question, there's a hand there.
Yes, I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what is the volume of the book? I know you're talking about maybe 200 pages and all that, but I know that some, this bestseller books, that people read about, they are in volumes. Some they are very heavy, and people read it with maybe some. They just take 2 days, they finish one. All these story books.
Yes.
But when it comes to books, books that are lectures and all that, people it takes more time for them to go through them. So I want to, what is the...
Yeah, so like I said, the volume of the book could be 10 pages, 20 pages, 50 pages. It all depends on you. For me, I charge according to the number. When the clients meet and ask you, how many pages do you want me to write for you? If you say you want 200 pages, your fee is $1,200. If you want 150 pages, your fee is $1,100. If you want 100 pages, which is the smallest that I write, it's $1,000. So you agree to it, fine. You don't agree, bye-bye, look for somebody else to write it for you. But if it is your own book, choose any number of pages you want. Nobody will beat you and say, why did you write 50 or why did you write 100? It's up to you. But me, as a freelance writer, I charge you according to the number of pages that you want me to write for you. Okay? Okay. Sorry, it seems I did not finish his answer. Give him again.
Yes, I know you are talking about the monetary terms.
Yes.
But what I mean, sometimes some volumes of books scare people to read.
Oh, okay. I get your point. I get your point. Yeah. Now, can I have that Bible? I don't know how many pages are here, but this is a big. Don't write a book like this. This is also a Bible. This one is smaller, and it's the same Bible. Yeah? So don't write something that is too voluminous. In fact, for a first-time writer, I will encourage you to write maybe just 100 pages. A 100-page book would be like this book. I told you this book is around 150 pages. Look at the size. If you are a good reader, you can read this book in 1 day or in 2 days. You'll finish it if you are serious. And because you are just starting, the volume of your book will scare people away. So write something small. But make that small, let it have good ingredients. Let it have flesh inside of it. So that next time when you write a bigger book, they will say, oh, we read that his other book. It was very good. So we want to read the next one. Okay?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
What if you are the one that wrote it, but you are not the one that brought up the idea, and the person that made you the author? Why you are not the author?
The person made you the author. Okay, so somebody brought an idea to you to write. After writing, the person now said, let the book be your own. Oh, well, it's agreement between you and the person. That's fine.
Okay, and my second question is, if you write and the owner is the author,
yeah,
will your name be in the book?
Be in the book as editor. Because you took the person's idea and you edited it. That's what you did. The person gave you the idea, the story, and everything, and then you just edit it. There are times where a client comes to me. They only tell me, I want to write a book about parenting. They don't give me any content. They don't give me any audio or anything. But the book is going to be about parenting, how to raise successful children. I go to work with just the title that they gave me. When I finish writing, I send to them. Since they are the one that brought the idea, even though I'm the one that will do 99% of the work, as long as they have paid me for my job, let them carry the author title. It is their own because they brought the idea. Okay? If I want to now write my own book on parenting tomorrow, I can easily do it. Even though I have written for them on parenting. I can write 5 different books on parenting with different subtitles and different topics inside. So that you wrote for somebody does not restrict you from writing on that same subject for yourself. I don't know if you get the point. Yeah. If you can do it for that person, it means you can do it for yourself also. But you are not going to repeat exactly what is in that person's book. Otherwise, you would have plagiarized that person's book.
I want to talk about writing system. That's a book. Sometimes people get bored when they see the letters small.
Yeah.
So when they see bold letters, it's catching.
Yeah.
It attracts them.
Yeah.
And also the type of, the quality of the paper used.
Yeah.
If it's, there's matte, right?
Yeah.
They have all sorts. But if it's dull, you find out that people are not attracted to it.
Yeah.
They just open it. Once they see it, they close the book quickly. There's this thing about it. So I don't know if you have something to say about that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So I'm supposed to teach that when I'm talking about, when we get to printing, okay? Printing of the book. Because the printing of the book is not going to be done by you. It is the printing press that will do it. You only just tell them what you want. If you want a glossy back, if you want cream paper inside, or you want white paper, you tell them the fonts that you want to use and the size of the fonts, if it's 14 or if it is 12. For people that have eye problems, 12 might be too small for them. They will not be able to see it very well. So you might use 14 as the font. But we'll talk about that when we get to that, okay? Okay.
My question is that if you're writing a topic that talks about, let me just give an example of 5 ways to get money, something like that.
Okay.
Will you still write chapters?
Yes, 5 ways to get money. That already shows that the book should have how many chapters? 5 chapters. So chapter 1, you talk about the first way to make money. Chapter 2, you talk about the second way, like that, 5 chapters. Then plus your introduction. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
So actually, mine is like a paraphrase of the assignment you gave us before the break.
Okay.
Like I was trying to draft us an introduction.
Beautiful.
On my title.
Beautiful. So let's listen to him.
And so I wrote something here. My title is Mentors and Mentees, subtitles, 10 effective ways of becoming a mentee.
Okay.
And my introduction is, as Bible emphasizes man as both men and women. As the name implies, mentors, there are men who are made to take you through the tours of life, business, career, profession, etc. Elijah made Elisha, Jesus made Peter and Co. Eli made Samuel. Bishop Idahosa made Apostle Zili. So if you're looking for who to make you, read on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, this introduction, everything you said now, will not be the whole introduction. This might just be the ending part of the introduction. You get it, right? Yeah, so you can even say something like, in a world where a lot of young people are getting astray and joining bad gangs and all of that, it is important that we talk about, mentors and the need to have a mentors. You can start like that and then you say some other things before you now get to that point where you finish the introduction. I don't know if you get it. Let's applaud him. Good job. Good job. Good job. Yes. I love proactive people. Good job. Okay. So let's quickly run through how to write chapter 1. Everything I teach you about chapter 1, we apply to chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. So I'm not going to be teaching you chapter 2 and all of that. Everything we say about chapter 1 applies to all of the chapters. Now, the first chapter of your book can attract your readers or repel your readers. We said that sometimes some people might not read your introduction, but the truth is most people read your introduction. So imagine that somebody did not read your introduction and they just start from chapter 1. It means that the first thing they are going to be seeing about your book is the chapter 1. And that chapter 1 can attract them to continue reading or repel them. So to write an effective first chapter, you need to know what writing style is best for your book genre. So you know that your book genre is non-fiction. What type of non-fiction? Let's say it is self-help or personal development book. So for such books, you want to know, you want to challenge the reader to do something, you want to provoke the reader, you want to help the reader to develop themselves. So that will determine the style of writing that you are going to use. If you are writing a fiction, for example, you are telling a story. So the language and the style will be different from when you are writing a non-fiction in your chapter 1. How you start depends on whether you are writing fiction or non-fiction. Next slide. With fiction, you might hook the reader by vividly describing a unique character within with a bit of a secret. So for those of you who are going to be writing fiction, your book is about story. So you are describing a unique feature. Maybe you are talking about a girl, how he fell in love with, and as they were about to get married, the guy got admission and traveled abroad. What will happen to this marriage? Will it continue to this relationship? Will it continue or will it fade away? You just hook them with something intriguing, a story. Okay? That's what that place is talking about. When they say hook the reader by vividly describing a unique character with a bit of a secret, in that introduction, you start a story, if you're writing fiction, and create a suspense that make people want to continue reading the book to see what happened to the character that you are describing. But with non-fiction, you are not telling a story. Non-fiction is about you are presenting an argument. Why you have to be financially prosperous, why you need to pray, 21 ways to become successful. So with non-fiction, it is more about presenting an argument. Why is your book relevant to the reader? So in your chapter 1, you want to tell the reader why this book is important for them, why they need to read it. You are proving a point. You are telling them that that there are other books that talk about dreams, but this particular book, you need it, and this is why you need it. That is what you are doing. So you are presenting your argument in your chapter 1. Remember that we said that non-fiction books are to solve problems, okay? So in your chapter 1, you must present the argument or present the opinion that you are trying to, buttress in your chapter 1. Why might your book be interesting or provide useful or valuable information to the reader? That should be in your chapter 1. So your chapter 1 is still about telling the reader why they need the book, why you wrote the book, why the book is important to them, why the book will solve their problem, why this book is better than the one that another person wrote on the same topic. So that is what you are doing in your chapter 1 beginning. Next slide. So to write your chapter 1, you have to create an outline. I told you before we went for break that you should have a chapter, then break it into 3 or 2 subchapters. So that is an outline that you are creating already. So if you fail to create an outline, you may get stuck along the way, and you may need to cancel the whole chapter and start again. So you have the chapter title already, and you have 2 or 3 subchapters. That is your outline. So you write about the first subchapter, write about the second subchapter, and then write about the third subchapter if you have 3 or if you have 2. Okay? So create an outline. Your outline should be flexible. What does that mean? Feel free to rearrange some of the content as you go. Let's say you wanted to start by saying somebody talked about family here, the origin of family and all of that. At some point you will realize that maybe I would have started with the last subchapter as the first subchapter, so you can rearrange your outline. And the same thing I'm saying for chapter 1 applies to all the other chapters of your book. Feel free, make your subchapters or your outline flexible. Next slide. Now, the first paragraph of your chapter 1, the opening paragraph of your first chapter should pull readers into the book and make them want more. Because now the readers are already in the chapter 1. They can still decide to drop your book. The fact that they are in chapter 1 does not mean they will read to the end. So that chapter 1 has to pull them, has to be intriguing, has to excite them to want to continue reading. The first sentence needs to reach through the pages and grab the reader. So your chapter 1 should be so intriguing that the readers don't want to drop the book. They want to continue reading. Now, you can start with a storyline, with a story or a line that keeps them in suspense and asking to know more. Now, this is chapter 1. You can start with a storyline. You can also decide not to start with a storyline. I'm going to show you an example of a book that started with a storyline and one that did not start with a storyline. But you know, if you are writing fiction, it is story. So your chapter 1 would definitely have a story. But if you are writing non-fiction, you can decide not to start with a story at all. Just present your argument, introduce the concept that you are writing about in the book. Okay, next one. Now, introduce and stick to your tone or the voice you want to use throughout the book. One mistake that people make, they try to emulate other writers. That would be the greatest mistake. If you are writing, you start chapter 1, you are not trying to write like Apostle Ziliagri. When you don't know how to write like Apostle Ziliagri, you want to write like him. How will you be able to sustain that tone of voice till the end of the book? You will not be able to do it. So do not emulate the tone or the voice of other readers. A client in Jamaica gave me a book to write. Now, when I finished writing the book, in fact, she told me she wants this book to be like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It should be in the tone of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I told her, I said, every writer has their specific voice. I cannot write like Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I have my voice. Robert Kiyosaki has his voice. Sunday Adelaja has his tone of voice, the way he writes. Apostle Ziliagri has the way he writes, like that. So don't try to emulate another author. Otherwise, you will not be able to sustain it because it is fake. If I try to write like Robert Kiyosaki, after chapter 1, by the time I get to chapter 2, my real voice will now start coming out. So when somebody is reading the book, they will say, the person that wrote chapter 1 is as if it's not the same person that wrote chapter 2. Do you get the point? So don't emulate other writers here. Write the way you think and in the tone you plan to use throughout the book. Whatever you have seen that another writer wrote, write it in your own voice. Okay? But don't use another author's voice to write. As you continue your book, reread your first chapter several times to check the voice and make sure that it is consistent. Don't start with a very argumentative voice and then at the end of the day, you move to a very relaxed, laid back kind of tone. No. Whatever tone you start with, try to, finish up with that same voice or that same tone. Okay, next one. Pick your point of view. Decide whether you will be using first person or third person. Now, this is very important. Decide whether you will be using first person or third person pronouns, past or present tense, depending on the event you are writing about. So, when in your chapter 1, you can decide to either use first person or third person. But it depends on whether you are writing fiction or non-fiction. I give you an example. For fiction, you could use first or third person. Why? Because you are telling a story. Listen to this. You are telling a story. If you are telling a story about your life, okay, you can now use first person. You say, I did this, I went to school, I did this, I did that. You can use past tense and all of that because you are telling a story of something. Okay? Even though that story probably did not really happen, but you are writing a story about yourself, which is fiction. You just created the story, but it's about you. So you can use first person. You can say, I now went to school, I bought this, I bought that, I got married. You can use that, okay? Or you use third person if you are writing a story about another person. So imagine I'm writing a book about a lady called Icaria. And Icaria is from River State. So when I'm writing about Icaria, I will say she was born in Obiakpo local government, I use she. I'm the one writing the book about a lady called Ikaria, so I can now use she, which is third person. But if I'm writing the book about myself, I use what? I was born in Obiakpo local government. Okay? So whether it is third person or first person depends on what you are writing. But if you are writing non-fiction, you can use first person, you can use second person, and you can use third person. How? What do I mean? If I'm writing non-fiction, there are places where I want to tell stories about myself in my non-fiction book. Okay? So I can tell them that in 2013, I traveled to Ukraine because I got admission to study medicine. So I said I, first person. Okay? And then when I got to Ukraine, I met a man by the name Dr. Sunday Adelaja. He became my mentor. He, who is he? Adelaja, because I'm talking about him in my book. So I'm now using third person. Then there are points where I will not use second person. I will not say, in this book, you have to pay attention to the principles. Now I'm talking to the reader who is reading the book, and use you as a second person. I don't know if you get the point. So for non-fiction, you can use first person, second person, and third person. But for fiction, you cannot use second person, because for fiction, you are either telling a story about yourself or you are telling a story about another person. So you say she does, or he or she did this and that. Did I confuse you at all? Did you understand what I said? Ask questions if you do not understand, okay? So I said you can use first or third person. Next slide. Rules for chapters and subchapters. Word number. Now pay attention. Word number. Number of words per chapter should be around 1,000 words to 2,000 words. Pay attention to that. 1,000 words per chapter or 2,000 words per chapter. Per chapter. Number of words per chapter should be 1,000 words, it could be 2,000 words. Now, yours could be 3,000 words, it depends on you. Okay? Now, imagine that a book has 1,000 words per chapter. And I'm writing 10 chapters for that book. How many thousand words will be in the entire book? If one chapter has 1,000 words, and I'm writing 10 chapters, how many thousand words will be in that book? 10,000 words, is it not? 10,000 words. Now, and a 10,000 word book will be just around maybe 50 pages thereabouts. It's a small book. Okay? Now, if I write 2,000 words per chapter, and I write 10 chapters, that is how many thousand words? 20,000 words. And that 20,000 words might just be around 100 pages. Okay? So if I write 4,000 words in one chapter, and I'm writing 10 chapters, that would be how many thousand words? 40,000 words. Is anybody confused? No. So you can choose how many words you want to write depending on the size of the book that you want to write, like I said. So if you want to write only 50 pages, you write smaller number of words. If you want to write 100 pages, you write more words. There are no hard and fast rules as to the number of words that should be in a chapter. But I suggest 1K or 2K per chapter for beginners. Now, one idea per chapter. Don't mix different ideas in one chapter. If chapter 1 is talking about how to have a successful courtship, let everything you are writing about chapter 1 be about successful courtship. Don't bring financial prosperity into that chapter. Let everything be. So one idea, even if you want to write about prosperity in that same book, don't put it in that chapter 1. Otherwise, you would have mixed two ideas together in one chapter, which is confusing for the reader. So let it be one idea per chapter. If you say this chapter is about mentorship, let it be about mentorship. If this chapter is about hard work, let it be about hard work. If this chapter is about making the right decision, let it be about making the right decision. Don't mix the ideas together. Like somebody mentioned 5 ways to make money, that young lady said. So that first way to make money, let it be one chapter. Don't bring an idea from chapter 2 and mix it with an idea from chapter 1. Is that okay? So, number 3, conclude each chapter idea. Now, pay attention to this. When you are writing a book, there's something they call intro and outro. Okay? The outro is you are concluding everything you have said in that chapter. In that chapter 1, when you want to finish the chapter 1, you need to remind the reader everything that you have said in that chapter 1. So let's say you had 3 sub-chapters for chapter 1, right? And in the first sub-chapter, you talked about how to become successful in business. The second sub-chapter, the risk involved in business. The third sub-chapters, advantages of preparing for risk. So what you do, when you are concluding that chapter, highlight these 3 points that you talked about in those sub-chapters. So that we'll call that outro. Why are you doing that? Because imagine that you wrote a book of, that one chapter has 10 pages, for example. By the time the person is in the last page of chapter 1, he or she must have forgotten what you said in the first or second pages. So as you are rounding off that chapter, you need to remind them of the points you talked about in the previous pages. Do you understand? So we call that an outro or a conclusion of the subchapter idea. All subchapters must relate to the chapter title. I said this before. Your subchapter must relate to the title of that chapter. Don't give a chapter title that says how to make money and then you now put a subchapter why my marriage failed. There's no connection between that. Everything should be around how to make money. Okay? Good. Next one. When you join my mentorship class, I'm going to expand on all of these things. You will understand them better. Good. So this is an example of a chapter that began with a story. I told you can start with a story or you can decide to just become argumentative and hit your point. So let's take an example of chapter 1. Let's read this quickly. This book is titled, Who Am I? Why Am I Here? By Dr. Sunday Adelaja.
That moment I understood who I missed.
Hold on. Just like the other story I read about Rich Dad Poor Dad, I want you to pick lessons from this story. So pay attention to it.
I understood what person I lacked. I clearly realized who I longed for, who I missed for a long time, and who I lacked every day I lived. I missed myself, true and happy. What do you consider to be the most disgusting thing in the world? Is the question the young journalist was posing to travelers going through Kennedy Airport, USA, the morning of his greatest life-changing encounter? There were many answers, all reflecting the devastating conditions of the world climate. Yet, when he saw a young Zen monk in complete Buddhist dress, the journalist knew this would be a different viewpoint. With eagerness, he awaited the monk's answer to the question. The monk answered with a counter question. Who are you? Startled, the reporter answered, I am John Smith.
Hold on. Ask your neighbor, who are you? What is your answer? What did they tell you? You mentioned your name, right? Okay, go ahead.
I am John Smith. No, that is just your name. But who are you?
Ask your neighbor again. That is just your name. Who are you? Pay attention. Very important. When somebody asks you, who are you? You say, I'm Dr. Clement. That is not who you are. That is just your name. Okay? Go ahead.
I am a journalist for a television company. No, that is just your job. But who are you?
So they say, who are you? I'm Clement, I'm a medical doctor. Okay, that is your name and that is your profession, but who are you? Ask your neighbor, who are you? What is the title of this book? Who am I? Why am I here? So this book is about how to discover your life's purpose beyond your academic certificate and beyond the name that your parents gave to you. Okay? Go ahead.
I am a human being. No, that is just your species.
So you are a human being. Okay, that is just your species.
But who are you? The journalist finally understood what the monk meant and stood there with his mouth wide open because he couldn't find anything to say. He really had never thought about who he was.
Yes, that is how most of us are. We have never sat down to think about who we are. Why do we exist? We only just say, okay, my name is this, I'm an engineer or I'm a doctor, you describe your profession and all of that and what you do for a living, but that is still not who you are. So the question you must answer from this training is, who are you? You have to answer that question. Maybe in the future, we might have a training on how to discover your life's purpose. A lot of people do not know why they exist. They only know their name and they know their profession. But beyond your name and your profession, or beyond the fact that you are a human being, who are you? Go ahead.
The monk then remarked, that's the most disgusting thing in the world, being unaware of who you are.
Terrible. That's the most disgusting thing in the world, being unaware of who you are.
Discovering your identity is the key to fulfilling your destiny. If we are not aware of who we are, how we will know where we are going, or how we should get there, or how we should get there.
So if you don't know who you are, how will you know where you are going and how to get there? It's terrible. And most of us live 50, 60, 70 years on earth and we still do not know who we are and where, and the reason why we exist and where we are going. Okay.
Allow me to share another story that illustrates the necessity of understanding who you are.
Okay, move to the next page. Go, leave it there. So, that book that we just read is titled, Who Am I? Why Am I Here? That is chapter 1. Imagine you are reading a book and the chapter 1 is telling you that what you thought is your description of who you are is just your name, just your profession, and just your species, and that you don't really know who you are. And this book is now promising you that I'm going to teach you how to discover who you are. Won't you want to read the other chapters? Of course, you want to read it. So that is Dr. Sunday Adelaja's book. He started with that story, you know. So such kind of stories hook your readers. And they want to know, how can you tell me, I've been boasting that, oh, I'm a medical doctor, and now you are telling me that that is just my profession, that is not who I am. So I want to go and find out who am I, to discover the reason why God sent me here on earth. So that's the beautiful book. Now, this other book is a book that started with a little, not really like a story, but let me show you how this chapter 1 was done. Okay, let's go ahead. This book is titled, Dreams Don't Die. I told you that in the chapter 1, that is when you present your argument or the points of that book. The other book we read just now is Who Am I? Why Am I Here? And you see that that chapter is talking about purpose. Who are you? Now this book is titled Dreams Don't Die. People give up on them. Let's read the chapter 1.
Life is meaningless without dreams.
So the chapter 1 here is what? Life is meaningless without dreams. Did you see that the chapter 1 is related to the title of the book? Because the book is titled Dreams Don't Die. People give up on them. And then chapter 1 is titled Life is meaningless without dreams. Okay?
As I stood on the podium waiting for my name to be called, several thoughts ran through my mind. It was a mixture of happy and sad thoughts. Sad thoughts because I felt I should have acquired this about 10 years ago. And not only that, others got it within 6 years. But it took me 10 years to come to this point. As I looked at those who stood on the podium with me as colleagues and the rest of them who sat in the beautiful big ground,
big round, well decorated and densely populated hall.
Okay. Well decorated.
Okay, I realized that a lot of them
were people who are 10 years or so younger than I am. I have spent the last 6 years with people who are far younger than the last child in my family, as classmates and colleagues on a journey to acquiring the prestigious degree, Doctor of Medicine, a degree I have dreamt about while still an early teenager. Although my dream ought to have been achieved at the age of 23 or at most 24, here I was at 33 standing on the same podium with people I am a decade older than and waiting to receive the same diploma. While I struggled to get off the sad thoughts from my heart, I began to see the other side of the circumstance, the positive side of things. I began to hear a voice on my inside saying to me, yes, it took you this long to get here, but the good thing is, you did not give up on your dreams. The voice continued to speak further and said to me, you have fulfilled your dream at last, and that is all that matters. How long you took to get your dream fulfilled is not as important.
Okay, hold on. Now, what the author has done here is to first identify the reader that some people, they dream, but they give up on their dreams. Maybe because the dream is taking a long time and then they give up on it. They say, oh, that dream is dead. They just forget about the dream. But this author was at a point where he was feeling sad that his dreams, was being delayed because he spent many more years than he should have spent in achieving that medical dream that he dreamt about. And now this author is now trying to tell you that it is not how long it takes to fulfill the dream that matters, but the fact that you eventually did what? Fulfilled that dream. So we have already seen the audience that we are talking to. People who want to give up on their dreams, or people who feel that their dreams are delaying. Okay, go along.
Many have given up on their dreams. Others had no courage to walk the long and curvy road to their dreams. But you have conquered all hurdles and obstacles to get to your dreams. You ought to rejoice. You are a winner. You did not quit. For winners never quit and quitters never win.
What is the title of the book? Dreams don't die, people give up on them. So now the author is telling you that winners never quit and quitters never win. Go ahead.
As these words resounded in my ears, I took a deep breath and suddenly happy thoughts began to flood my soul, and it began to make sense to me that the dream is all that matters, how long it takes to achieve it. Before I could finish refreshing my soul with those happy thoughts, I heard the names Dr. Ogedegbe, Clement Ogedegbe. I walked prestigiously towards the rector, vice rector, and vice dean of my university, Ivano Frankivsk, National Medical University, Ukraine. Took a bow, shook hands with them, and collected my diploma. As I walked down the podium alongside my colleagues, I said to myself, dreams don't die. People give up on them.
A dream that was supposed to be achieved at the age of 23. You are getting it at the age of 33. And you were feeling sad. But then you are reminded that what is important is the dream. It doesn't matter how long it took, but you still achieved it. And while I was thinking about all of those things, I heard my name. I was called up and I went up to pick my diploma. And then I said to myself, dreams don't die, people give up on them. This is actually, I didn't plan to write this book. It was on my graduation ceremony when I was collecting my diploma. I heard dreams don't die. I know how many years it took me. I did first degree in Uniport. I studied human anatomy for 4 years. I wanted to do medicine. I could not get medicine. I wrote JAM here, wrote JAM there. Eventually, I got admission and I traveled abroad. And I had to graduate at the age of 33 when I ought to have been a doctor at the age of 23. But what matters is that I eventually got that dream. And throughout that day, I started thinking about dreams. And ideas started coming. And that was how this book came about. Dreams don't die. People give up on them. Go ahead, quickly.
Throughout that day, I was in deep thoughts about what dreams really are and why most people give up on their dreams. I looked around the streets and saw cars, houses, books, phones in the hands of people. I thought of the airplane, the electric bulbs, computers, CT scan machines, X-ray tubes, stethoscopes, syringes, medications, etc. Then I began to think about doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants.
Every profession you see, the people you see, they one day dream that they want to become this, they want to become that. This microphone you see, somebody dreamt about it, created it. Everything you see came from somebody who dreamt about something and they went ahead to create it. Move to the next page quickly. Let's round off. I want to see the last part of this. Move to the next page. Okay, good. So I stopped it there. So the idea I wanted to tell you is that chapter 1 started with a story of what happened to me while I was graduating, collecting my certificate, and the thoughts that came to me, and I put it into a book. And I was able to identify that if you have a dream and you want to give up on your dream, don't give up. I did not give up on my dream. I was able to achieve my dream. So you too can achieve it. And I'm going to show you how to achieve your dreams. So that will make you want to read other chapters of the book to see the dreams that you have abandoned and how to pick them back. So that will be all for today. Tomorrow, we're going to start with stories, plagiarism, links, and quotes. Quickly, let's have questions. If you have any question on how to write chapter 1. Does anybody have any question, or you want to say something that you learned from chapter 1? We'll do this in 10 minutes, and then I'll let you go. Yes, there's somebody behind there.
I want to ask, in chapter 1, is it okay if someone wants to start with definitions of terms?
Yes, you can start with definition of terms if you want. But again, that depends on what is in your sub-chapter. So if chapter 1 is about marriage, your first sub-chapter is what is marriage. So under what is marriage, you cannot define what marriage is. Quickly, before I forget, take note of this. In every chapter of your book, right, I recommend that you put at least 2 stories. 2 stories, and these stories do not have to be original stories, okay? So maybe I'll leave that I'll talk about that. Remind me that I'm going to tell you how many stories should be in your book, how many quotes should be in each chapter. I'll talk about that tomorrow. But yes, you can start with definition of terms.
I have a question for rules for chapters and subchapters. You said in number 3, conclude each subchapter's idea. Do you mean that, like when I'm in chapter 3, I can say, remember that the cockroach died, but do you know that it's still alive?
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. Could you repeat that?
I said I have a question for rules for chapters and subchapters.
Okay.
In number 3, they conclude each subchapter's idea.
Yes.
So, if I'm in chapter 3, can I say that, remember that the cockroach died and now is alive now?
Yes, you can. You can say something like that. If you already mentioned before that the cockroach died, okay, so now you are summarizing. You say, remember that the cockroach died and now is alive. You can do something like that, yes.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What if one is not a good creative writer? According to you, based on the story we read, it shows that you are not just writing nonfiction, but you also have, to an extent, a level of knowledge in creative writing.
Yeah.
What if someone who is not a creative writer, how would the person weave a story inside his writing?
Okay, so everybody who is writing non-creative or non-fiction kind of writing, yeah, at some point, I told you that with writing, the more you write, the more you improve, okay? It will get to a time where your imaginative ability will expand. As you are writing, you begin to imagine things. For example, I just heard dreams don't die, and I began to imagine, look around everything around me, and I saw that, oh, somebody dreamt about this thing before they created it. Somebody dreamt about this. So your imagination will begin to expand as the more you write. And then you will now become a creative writer. I do not think that, although there are people who are born with very strong creative imagination, okay, but you can build yourself to become that, and you do that by practice. Once you start writing, you will realize that your imagination will expand and you begin to create stories. You can write a book and all the stories in the book will just be you created them. They actually did not happen. You can do that. But you mature as you continue writing. Your brain expands and you're able to imagine better.
Thank you, Doctor. I want to ask this question concerning what you said about the chapter 1. You said in writing chapter 1, you should, at the conclusion, everything about it should be concluded.
Yes.
Then how do you now link to the chapter 2 to a kind of encouraging the reader to go further, since you have to conclude?
Beautiful.
That idea of chapter 1.
So imagine we talked about in chapter 1 why your dream is so important and you should not give up on these dreams, right? And then you conclude that chapter 1 saying that even though that most people think that their dreams are dead, dreams actually do not die. If you pick up those dreams and pursue them, you will eventually achieve them. However, on your way to achieving your dreams, there are going to be a lot of obstacles. And in the next chapter of this book, I'm going to show you how to overcome the obstacles that hinder the achievement of dreams. What have I done? I've introduced you to the next chapter. So the next chapter will now be how to overcome the obstacles to achievement of dreams. Do you understand it? Put your hands together if you want to. There's a hand there.
Okay, Doc, I want to talk about the place of pictures to explain what you mean better in books. Because some persons, until they see pictures of certain things, they don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you can put pictures if you are writing. Again, it depends on what topic you are writing about. So if you feel that the concept that you are trying to introduce, pictures will better explain it to your readers, then put the pictures there. But also know that those pictures, if they are colored picture, for example, might increase your cost of printing the book if there are pictures inside. Just know that. But there's nothing wrong with putting pictures in the book. Thank you.
I have a question on the introduction aspect.
Yes.
Can a fiction story still have an introduction, since it's not a real story? Okay,
good. Now, I didn't stress on that because I said this course is based on non-fiction. So for a fiction, what you do as your introduction, we call it prologue. You write what is called a prologue. So the prologue, you can start the story that this book is all about. Start the story with the prologue. So the prologue is the introduction. So once you start the story, leave a suspense at the end of that prologue that will lead the people into chapter 1. They want to see what happened next. Okay, so that will make them to want to read the chapter 1. It's like when you are watching a movie that is in series or seasons movie. After the first season, they leave a suspense that make you want to watch season 2. That's how you do it. So it is called prologue instead of introduction for fiction. Okay? Yeah.
If you are writing a story, can you also write it as if you are saying it to the person?
As if you are saying
it to the person, like you said in chapter 1, if you want to conclude. Can you say that as the cockroach is alive, let's read furthermore to see what happened?
You are talking to the readers. So you are talking as if you are talking to the readers. You are talking to the readers. That's why I said you can use first person, second person, third person in non-fiction. You are talking to the readers. So you are telling the readers, let's move to the next chapters. Okay? You can do that.
Sir, you said that fictional novels don't have introduction. But if I remember correctly, The Alchemist had an introduction before the prologue.
Okay, so the Alchemist is more like a self-help book. It's more like a personal development book because that book is about discovering your life's purpose, your journey of life. That is what The Alchemist is. So The Alchemist wrote the book like fiction because the story he's telling looks like fiction, but the book is, if you read the book, you'll find out that book is mostly like a non-fiction book, so it's like a combination of fiction and non-fiction. If he had an introduction, then he would not have a prologue. If he does not have an introduction, then it will have what? A prologue. So if what he did, he called it an introduction, okay, then it is because he's writing that book as fiction and as non-fiction. But if what you want to write is purely a novel, you know this is purely novel or just story, it's better to use the word prologue instead of using introduction. And in that, The Alchemist, he started with a story in that introduction, and that story led to the chapter 1, is it not? Is that not what happened? Yes. So the difference is just either you call it introduction or you call it what? Prologue. If what you are writing is purely fiction, use prologue. If it is purely non-fiction, use introduction. Okay? So, but I think what The Alchemist did, he tried to write a book more like fiction and non-fiction at the same time. But for your level, I will not encourage you to do that. Know your genre, whether it is fiction you want to write or it is non-fiction, and use the appropriate terms that relate to that book genre. Okay.
Sir, I need a clarification because of some certain children we have here. What is the difference between dream, vision, and just insight?
Okay, so now you are going to invite me for another training. You pay me for that training, and I'll teach you all of those things that are not related to this class. Okay? But you can actually get that from dictionary now. Just check dictionary, meaning of dreams, meaning of visions. You get a dream could. No, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to buy my book. Go to Amazon. My book is titled Dreams Don't Die. People give up on them. Go to Amazon. Type my name, you will see my book, read it. If you read my book, I differentiated between two types of dreams in that book. We have what people will call daydreamers. You are daydreaming. So I differentiated between daydreaming and night dreams. And I explained how dreams could be related to vision of what you want to become. So you have to go and buy my book and read. Go to Okada Books or Amazon, you will see my book there. Okay. If that is all we have for today, I'm going to say a big thank you to all of you for your attention. Can we put our hands together for ourselves?